buenas noches, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, muchas gracias to all for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, as the love and support everyone shares with me. From the heart, thank you. Also, do please like, share, subscribe, and hype to the video to help the message get out a little more in the sense it could be something positive. Gracias. Before I start, I also want to invite everyone this Wednesday, the 8th at 2 p.m. Pacific time. Me and Gabe are going to have a sit down, just a conversation. We're going to do it live, hopefully, to include everyone. And it's going to mostly circle around the recent book I put on that's out, that's on Amazon right now, as many other things. Thank you to everyone. Well, today I want to touch on a camarada, right? Rojo from San Diego, from Oceanside. And basically, how you could say his downfall went. At first I didn't really understand it. But today, just being a fly on the wall, I was hearing Bam Bam, and he reminded me of this camarada. Now, I don't know if the Rojo and Bam Bam story is the same homie, but nevertheless, this goes back to Corcoran. I was on B yard already validated, right? And it was one of the first signs you could say that was a power move against Artie, as you start seeing the San Diego faction, to some extent reaching out to wet assurance people. But allow me to make sense, right? Like I stated, I was on B yard already, right? And all the camaradas there, overall, everyone's validated, right? The people just doing shoot turns there on A yard. But in this, there had been a power move amongst meseros, right? Because from the high desert, it was more of a mesa system, even from earlier on, right? And it had to do with Sherm. That's the way he wanted it, because he wanted a seat for himself. Well, at one point, this homie Rojo, like I said, from Oceanside, San Diego, he uh he had it for Sherm. He was doing his thing. You heard nothing but good stuff about him. Those that know Rojo, you will remember him, right? Big, stocky dude. You know, he's real good hunting. I could sincerely say that till date, right? Well, anyways, his celly was Snoopy from Mesa. He was older homie. He was also validated, and Rojo was a lifer. Snoopy had a date. He had double digits, but he had a date, right? Nevertheless, you know, at the end of the day, if you were ever behind them walls as a lifer, a date's a day, right? But anyways, Snoopy was doing some things for Ronie and Soledad, right? And to what extent, do forgive me, I don't know. That was just what came down the pipeline. I knew about Rojo because Like, I was supporting Terco, Sherm, so I was aware of him, right? Like I said, I heard a lot of good things about him, but nevertheless, when they hit Corcoran, they hit with something against them already. You see, Sherm was one of the hardest pushers against Artie when it came to Artie not wanting the Bay to have soldados in the main lines from Salinas down, right? And he felt Corcoran took claim of it, more so him. Artie had a huge following, you can't take that from him. He had a lot of workers, and even though he was like how he was, he had a lot of loyal individuals with him. Even at the end when he started abusing and stomping on camaradas by you did any little thing, you were getting fined $500. Oh, 20 days came up, your family didn't pay him, or you owe me 1,000 now. And it just went on, right? It was part of him abusing everyone. And to be honest, I said it before, when Napili starts doing that, it's because he feels, the sugar starting to boil behind him, right? And he's starting to stock up because he knows he's near the end of his career. I seen it with numerous appeals. But anyways, getting back to Rojo, they had again issues to be dealt with because they were representing Sherm and Snoopy not so much, right? Because he was under Ronie, and Ronie was a death row faction, you could say. They didn't have nothing to do with the Bay. But however Rojo worked it out with Artie, he did, you know, and Rojo had a reach in the sense of at one point his family was doing things for cheeks, bat, and them on the streets. He had ways to connect to things, right? So you can imagine Artie mainly is like, okay, we sweep it under the rug, sin problema, but you need to break this much off or whatever. However, he worked it out. Everything was squashed, you know. But Rojo never checked in with Sherm. He hit Corcoran. He cleaned up whatever he needed to clean up with Artie to maintain in good graces, right? With the homies, with the senores in Corcoran, and he forgot about Sherm. Sherm was a jealous individual, power, definitely power hungry, right? At least when he was in Cali, he wanted his soldados to stay loyal to him, period, point blank. There was no in between, right? And Rojo never checked back with Sherm. And Sherm took it as he got hit by Artie. No, there had just recently been a big power struggle between Sherm and Artie in Salinas, you know, and Sherm shot word not just to myself, but to my celly that at the time was a carnal, right? Requesting what was going on, and oh, now that I think about it, that's another thing that might have been used against my celly, right, later on, that he was in touch with the Bay. But basically, todo bien, We wrote back on appeal, todo bien, Rojo's programming, his celly so-and-so, uh, everything's good. By us doing so, we're thinking we're speaking up for the camarada, right? And nevertheless, time went by, you know, time went by, a lot of things happened, For those that were in Corcoran, billiard, it was a constant thing. Like I said, Corcoran shoes, to me, it was a lot worse than the Bay when it came to boogie time, right? It was constantly, especially because at the moment everybody was on vidrio. They want a good one, right? Gang of camaradas just locking it up over nothing, and some getting so paranoid that they will move on their celly because they think their celly's gonna move on them, and just seen a lot of that, I remember one time we went out to the dog cages, and not to speak negative, but there's a Pili, that old man Rolo, man, he looked terrible, but it was well known he was on a good one, there was no carga going back there, so everybody was on that vidrio. And, if you guys know Rolo, his look is already, something, but imagine him on about a week of going on one, again, it's not to talk down on him, everybody was doing it, including Artie, you know. Anyways, within time, a lot of things played out. For example, the issue with the bulldog, well, the drop up bulldog, should I say it more clear, right? That was next door banging, and they cracked my door, and that would be the one that actually opened up my case again, right? And right after that, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 days after that, after count time at night, you start hearing it, Corcoran's, you hear everything, especially after Gallo and count, you could hear whatever's going on in another cell, if you're too loud, but you start hearing what it was, like two individuals getting down, and you have already, you had a whole bunch of people like Chaka, Speedy, well, a bunch of camaradas yelling up there, Snoopy, Rojo, ¿qué pasó? At the end of the day, the Judas would eventually, go up there, spray, get up in that cell, and they will pull out Rojo first. And as he's walking on the tier, you know, you see him walking on the tier, you see him all bleeding, right? All booked. He had been booked a gang of times. Again, he was a big boy. Snoopy wasn't nearly with the size that Rojo had. And then Snoopy comes out and nada, probably because the vato Snoopy, excuse me, waited till Rojo went to sleep, and did one of the moves on him because he probably knew he was gonna get, you know, Rojo's going to turn around and take that from him. But anyways, later on, when things came down, Snoopy ended up telling Rojo, hey, te manda saludos frio, Sherm, right? Basically, para que te pongas bien. And he took it personally, and of course, right? You're helping an individual holding a yard. You write it out through a power struggle with other camaradas to hold a position for him. You still got to get to Corcoran and clear your name with the individual that's there because they're having personal issues. And then you finesse it to have your celly behind your back hit you. And it's just a few kekis, right? It's nothing like you're done type of thing. It's just a saludo. But it wasn't going to stay there with Artie. Once Rojo explained what was happening, Artie will start a campaign per se against Snoop, you know, and Ronie, he stuck up for Snoop. You know, one of the times that I seen that a Billy sticks up for his worker, right? It happens, and it mostly happens with them Billys that feel they got it like that, because there is steps, there is rank in La M, even though they say que no, right? It all depends on how many people are under you and what you're moving or things like that, right? Ronie was the individual in death row. So he's basically going back and forth, and like I said before, I was there just being a fly supporting Artie, right? But just from that move from Ronie and Sherm, you could tell there was already enough conversations in the bay to push Artie out. It was coming. It was just a matter of time, and I think that's when Artie picked it up double time, right? On camaradas and anything you lose. You used to lose a fishing line, $500. You went out to medical without getting at him first, $300. And it was just constantly him clipping the camaradas. He felt what was coming. Nevertheless, they put Snoops on walk alone, and nothing happened to him. Roku, he went out, he patched up, he came back, and was trying to figure out what was going on with Sherm, right? He felt he had done nothing wrong, excuse me, and rightfully, rightful so, right? He hadn't. In reality, he was trying to cover his skin with Artie. He wasn't trying to minimize Sherm. Just it has to be in their time, right? They can't allow things to play out. And then I think we had fault in it too, when we said everything was worked out, the homie was programming, he had a celly, all that. We might have threw wood in the fire with Sherm without us really taking in consideration, right? Nevertheless, I spoke in the backstory. That's when I was real surprised, not just in the way they moved on Rojo, right? Being he's a camarada for San Diego that was holding it tough for them at one point. And was trying to do things correctly, right? But it's just never enough. They left him to try, excuse me, on his own with Artie. And then when Ronie and Sherm moved on him, keep in mind this is Artie's house. Ronie had no business of calling that shot in Artie's home, but he did so with no repercussions as the homie that did it. You know, Artie backed up from it, and that speaks values, believe me. And anyways, basically Rojo felt Artie left him to try by himself against that move. Next thing you know, you just seen Rojo getting escorted by the Judas, and he locked it up. You know, it's one of them things that I know exactly that saying, that feeling, everybody on that side are this, and that, the hate that you push or we push when we're there, but as you start seeing things unfold, you start realizing there is individuals on that side that should never be on that side. When it's just two members playing volleyball and the camaradas the net, you know, if one of them two pilis responds or shoots a ball and it hits the net, you're giving the win to one pili and you're at fault with the other pili for losing. If you guys get it, it's all a power game. That's what you see nowadays. The one thing I don't understand is how everybody speaks about social media when it's a known fact that they're politicking on each other by throwing fake narratives to individuals that don't even do their homework. They call them up with a good story, say they're still active, then they run with that narrative, throwing heat on another member. That way, it's like, hey, they're gonna be stuck investigating you, pulling your people, whatever, and I'll be free to do a lot more things. It's the new era of politics. It just makes no sense. But anyways, the end look on this one is as others. I always say what you do for one member on one year will never hold value on the next year for another member. Never. That's not how it works. You could do 1,000 things right, never mess up, ever follow guidelines to the fullest, but it just takes for you to land on the yard that a member don't like that member you were doing things for. Then he's gonna find a way to, well, he don't even have to do that no more. All he has to do is say, hey, Mambo, hit him, remove him. Guy ain't nothing up for questioning now. So I think the time is coming. But again, I'm not on here to spread poison. I was that individual that was there. I used to love the causa. I used to do it happily, even though I seen a lot of sideway things that didn't click in. I still fool myself and press forward. So I understand it. If you're there doing your thing, boogie, suit up, boot up, and vámonos. But if you're not, don't waste your life and follow along with that hype, that imprison is where you have to earn anything. Keep in mind, just alone, just because CDC did the integration yards, they're having a big miscommunication, Integrated yards, 50-50 yards, S&Y yards, but you never know where you're going to land. If you're level 1, level 2, and you land on a yard that a member ain't there, you automatically got 72 hours to bounce, or else, you know, you're automatically considered to be part of that side. But with this said, I hope I make sense. The message is that, don't go off with the hype. There is no such thing, you know. Don't become that net while two individuals play volleyball around you to see which one's going to work to take your career. Don't put yourself in that situation of heartaches, headaches. Don't put your family in that situation. Stay true to your neighborhood. Stay loyal to whatever you had already started. But overall, stay true to yourself and loyal to your loved ones.